From the Dallas On Air studios in beautiful Dallas, Texas, this is Fulfillment right here on DallasOnAir.com. And now here's your hosts, the Vegabomber, PJ Dunn, and the film samurai, Carlos Salinas.
Welcome, everybody. As you know, you are watching the Fulfillment Show. And with me always is the trusty sidekick, front kick, and bad kick, the film samurai.
Good morning, everybody.
Sweep the leg!
Sweep the legs.
And that big voice behind the camera and sometimes on the camera is Kazak.
Greetings and salutations, campers. Welcome to DallasOnAir.com.
Yes, and as is our custom around this time of year, we bring out the experts. And today, this show is featuring Horror Mike.
Oh man, I'm putting that on my resume. Oh man, expert of horror. I love it.
That's right. And so if you're tuning in for the first time, Fulfillment is the show where we talk all things movies. We talk about the directors, the acting, the script. We talk about movie collectibles. So if you just love talking movies or even TV series, then you have found yourself at the correct place. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about, since we're in that season of Halloween, we're going to talk about the best performances ever in a horror film. Now, horror films usually don't win Oscars or anything like this for the actors because it's kind of an overlooked genre when it comes to acting. But that doesn't mean that there weren't some great performances. And so we're going to look at that today. But before we jump into that, we're going to jump into what we've basically just seen lately so you get a sense of what we've been up to. So, Carlos, what have you seen?
All right. I've been watching a lot of 70s horror films this week.
There it is.
But I'm not going to talk movies this week. I'm going to talk a television series.
Okay.
I decided to binge watch The Haunting of Bly Manor. Last year, if you horror aficionados probably remember The Haunting of Hill House, the Mike Flanagan series.
Okay.
This is a kind of a continuation of this. It's another different story, a lot of the same actors. Let me read you the synopsis.
All right.
It's kind of set you up. After an au pair's tragic death, Henry hires a young American nanny to care for his orphan niece and nephew who reside at Bly Manor with the chief, Chef Owen, groundskeeper Jamie, and housekeeper Mrs. Gross. When you hear haunted house and kids, you automatically, okay, I've seen this before a million times. But I have to say, this story is pretty compelling. It's set up kind of bookended where there's a wedding about to happen. These guests are gathered in a little inn, and then they're kind of having drinks and so forth, and it's the night before the wedding. And somebody decides to start telling a story. And so this person is telling this whole story. It unfolds very slowly, but very well written, plot-wise. It's hard to talk about without giving away stuff, so I won't get into the plotting too much.
Okay.
The actors, most kids actors in this type of movies kind of are annoying, right?
Yeah.
You get a lot of, in this movie, they're not. The little girl's adorable, I thought. The little boy, he's good.
Okay.
The standout here is Victoria Pedretti. I haven't seen her much. I know she was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as one of the Manson girls.
Okay.
But this actress really impressed me. She's very expressive. She has a very heavy role in the film. She's an American in England, and she's like, of course, fish out of water. You know, she's not used to the way they're into tea. Of course, she's into coffee. You know, the English don't like coffee. Whatever.
I get that reference.
But yeah, this show is really, really well done. Mike Flanagan himself, you probably know him from Dr. Sleep and a few other things. He's very good at adapting Stephen King stuff. He did that Gerald's Game.
Okay.
And speaking of actresses who were in other stuff, like Carla Gugino, she's the one that's telling the story. So she comes out at the beginning and the end, but throughout the storytelling, she's kind of like doing she's telling it in the background while it's happening. But it's one of those series also like Haunting of Hill House where you pay attention to the backgrounds. There's stuff going on all the time. It's not a lot of like in Haunting of Hill House, there's always ghosts in the background. But this one it's not that extreme, But there is things in the background where you kind of like, oh, wow, what did I just see there? And things like that. So it's 9 episodes. I thought it was just going to be 8, but it's 9. The last episode, it's like 238 ending. It's like Return of the King. It's like it just keeps going. You think it's over, and then it keeps going, and then another ending, and then it keeps going. But I didn't mind it because I was so into the show, and I got so into the characters and what was happening. And yeah, that final episode got me a little emotional, as a matter of fact. And yeah, you could describe it as a horror story, but it's also a love story, actually. So take that for what it's worth. I thought it was very well done. Fantastic. Oh, and there's a surprise for fans of The Room. Zach,
Yeah.
you'll
There
like it.
is?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, I guess he already knows.
Okay.
I saw the
okay.
cast list.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's great. I love it.
Hi,
I
Tommy.
smiled real big when I saw him.
That's too cool. All right, Horror Mike, what have you seen lately?
Now, for me, I kind of saw a handful of different things, but the one I was most excited for, because Hulu is doing their kind of films after dark, which is kind of their horror movie line they do for Hulu.
Okay.
But the one I was most excited for, because I'm a big Clive Barker fan, I read those books, his books when I was growing up, was Books of Blood. Now, it's a pseudo sequel / spinoff. There was a movie about 2 or 3 years ago called Book Singular of Blood, which is an adaptation. So it is a horror novel series of anthology horror stories by Clive Barker, with the bookend being this supposed book of blood. You know, everyone's trying to hunt this book down, and these kind of horror stories in it. This first movie, which actually came out in theaters, was an almost direct adaptation. But from everything I can find out about this new one, the Hulu one, these are 3 original stories just set in that same universe. It's solid. Like, I think them kind of veering off the farm kind of may or may not hurt it, but I also get why they're like, everyone knows, people like me know these stories in and out. So they're like, well, we could try to follow up these stories that have been told over and over again, or we can try to do our own thing. Some of like those stories have been adapted into like their own movies. Like, boy, this is a deep dive. Rawhide Rex, which is like a big time like creature movie. That was just a story that they decided, let's take it, and which famously Clive Barker disavowed because he was like,
Yeah, it's really
oh yeah, he was like, I love all the actors, everything, but this creature looks like garbage. He's like, this is nothing like I wrote. And I love that creature, but he was like, no, I made this thing look horrifying. This looks terrible. So those movies, yeah, there's been a lot of movies that are Clive Barker's that are just adaptations of these Books of Blood stories.
Sure.
So I went and watched this one. This is just one of those situations where it does absolutely nothing wrong, but it doesn't do anything that makes it stand out. And I'm noticing there's a lot of films like that. Like I said, I kind of watched it, and I almost felt like I immediately forgot it. And what's kind of sad was I was waiting for this movie like all week. When they dropped the trailer last week, I was like, "Oh man, the new Books of this is gonna be awesome." But yeah, solid acting. Like I said, I should have been more prepared. Like you, I should have wrote down the actors and actresses because the main actress of this film, because there's 3 through stories, but there's an actress and she suffers from a necrosis where she listens and hears people eating and chewing and like smacking and stuff, and it leads to her. She always just trying to drown out noise, which leads to her being in dangerous situations. I was like, this is a great premise.
Britt Robertson? Is that her?
That's her. Thank you, Britt Robinson. She's good, and again, there's not a single bad performance, nothing poorly done. It's just, I just was like, I watched it. I was like, yeah, cool. I'm very happy. I'm very happy that this exists in the world, and I saw it. And then I went on to the chores I had to do. I went on to something else. It's like I don't feel like I wasted time.
There's
but
a lot of that these days.
Tragedy of it. So that again, solid. I do recommend a lot of the stuff on Hulu, and I'll just quickly will add. If you haven't seen it, Puka on Hulu, Pooka on Hulu. That was kind of like their standout movie from a couple years ago. It's a psychological thriller. That one's awesome. I rewatched that again last week, and I was like, yep, this still holds up. It's amazing. But
So Puka.
Puka.
And if you get it in the hood, it's called Pookie.
So it's made by Chris Rock as Pookie Tang.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, Zach, what have you seen lately?
Come back to me at the end because I got a rant that we need to go over.
Okay, we can do it. We will do it. That sounds fun. So I saw a true crime documentary called American Murder: The Family Next Door. And so this takes up the events in 2018 of the Watts family that lived in Fredericks, Colorado. And so what they've done with this is actually it's pretty interesting. They used real Facebook Live. Anytime they've filmed anything with their own camera, they use the text messaging between them and popped it up on the screen.
Body cam.
So they take it from 8 months before the thing happened, which I think is very clever, all the way up into the day that it happened. And so it's a very interesting study in just seeing how the personality of a person can be completely just changed, and then this person can completely leave you out and you not know what's going on. And you can sense that there's something going on. So the wife in this understands that there's something wrong with her husband, but he just isn't saying anything at all. And he's showing up like everything's well. And so when you first see it, they show you kind of the day of, and then they go backwards, right? And it's interesting because they show you real police footage when they pulled up with the body cam, how this dude acted. Now, if you don't know about this particular situation with the Watts family, the mom and the 2 children went missing, but we know they were eventually killed, right? And that's what shows up. And so what we're seeing is real footage, not acting, of the real dude and how he acted when the cops pulled up. And he was just as cool as a cucumber, even though he had done something that was one of the most horrible things you could ever do.
But the neighbor noticed something was off.
Yep.
Yeah, and
exactly. I was just about to
yes.
say that
When he was showing him his camera footage.
that stood out to me when I saw. I watched it also, and that's what stood out to me. And the neighbor was like, "He's acting weird. Like this is like one of his friends." I don't think it was the neighbor. Was like, "Yeah, I'm his friend. He's not acting right." Something I think you just mentioned it, that I really like, but I don't mean to cut you down. I apologize.
Sure.
I watch a ton of documentaries, or I listen to them.
Oh yeah.
And cause I do other stuff, and I started that when I stopped because I noticed, and it's so rare to do this because it's so hard from an editing perspective to tell a narrative with no narrator for a documentary, and you don't get lost. It gives you all the info you need to follow it. And I see so many documentaries. Maybe once a year do they do one like that. This was. I agree with you. It was great. It was really well done.
Yeah, I think this is one that if you haven't seen it, or if you're curious about the nature of just how anyone could do something absolutely horrible. I mean, we're talking about Halloween. This guy's a real monster.
Yep.
You know, and he did it without a mask. He did it without all these other, things that you would see in a movie. And that's scary to know that this could be the guy living next door to you.
It was premeditated and everything.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
that's disturbing.
Yeah, so American Murder, Family Next Door. So it's a very interesting. It's true, and it does pick up the timeline, and it doesn't get boring. And then at the end, you feel just dirty because you're just like, this dude he doesn't even look sorry for it
Doesn't look human
at all. He just is just calm, and he's just gonna move on to the next woman as if he was just changing clothes. He didn't seem to have any remorse at all, and you're just like, is this acting? This can't be acting. And it's like, nope, this is the real deal footage. So very interesting stuff. If you haven't seen it, you might want to check it out. Okay, Zach, how about you?
All right. So I went to go do my traditional October thing, and in October I go watch the Rocky Horror Picture Show. This year is the 45th anniversary of this film. The reason why I wanted to kind of bring it up in a rant because. Like I said, this is my October tradition. I go to this movie every year. I go see it in a theater with my friends.
Okay.
I gather with friends who I've known, friends who I don't know, and just celebrate this really wonderful film, which is a really terrible film, but it's a really wonderful film with the audience enjoying it. Yeah. And I always go watch it with the Shadowcast. It's usually Los Bastardos here out of Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
They're phenomenal. If you're doing Rocky Horror, you should hire them. But the fact is that I went to go see it at a drive-in. I went to go see it, in a parking lot with a bunch of, my friends and things like that. So again, like I said, these are people I know, people I don't know. But the social distancing made it so weird because the Rocky Horror Picture Show is not... it's not a movie that's supposed to be socially distant. It's supposed to be in your face with actors, running all over the audience, and they couldn't do it. Cast members weren't able to interact. It just made it so strange to go to. And the reason why it just makes me so crazy is because this week Regal Entertainment Cinemas announced they were closing.
Yep.
Alamo Drafthouse in North Texas is temporarily shuttered, and it just drives me so mad. And the fact that we're being robbed of a movie experience, of just going to a theater and enjoying. I mean, you can go if you want. I'm not getting near a theater, and it really pisses me off that I'm not able to enjoy this film after 45 years the same way I was enjoying it, 10 years ago, man. So it's just one of those things that I really hate to see happen. I really want this COVID thing to be done because I want to go back to the theaters. I want to go see my friends, and I want to go see a movie in the theater. So,
2020, baby.
So like I said, that being said, early voting starts in 2 days in Texas. Please do your part.
So I think.
And rant, sorry.
Yeah, no, I get it. So this is something we've talked about a bit, and that is, what does happen to movies now, and because the thing is, if you can get stuff streamed at your house, and then it's no fuss, no muss, and you get to have whatever drinks you want. You can always pause the movie when you need to get up and go to the bathroom and all this stuff, and you have all your creature comforts in your house. Once people get used to that, it will be really hard to talk some people to go out and see the theater, see the movie in the theater, even though you want that big experience. But what people are doing is they're just inviting all their friends over for movie night like they used to.
I just invested in a projector. I'm actually doing that.
Yeah.
Why do you think Disney ain't gonna release Black Widow? They'll just lose. Everyone's just gonna get together and buy it once, and that's it. They lose money. I will say my favorite line in regards to that was like, who would have thought that James Bond would have used his license to kill the theater, to kill the theater market.
Oh, I hate you for that, and yet that's perfect.
Sadly, it seems like everybody's plan was.
That's what happened to the Odeon train. Odeon train. What am I trying to say? The Odeon chain of theaters in UK are basically all closed because they were hoping to release James Bond and have it back in the theaters, have audiences back.
But again, that's why we do this show.
That's right.
We haven't lost our love of the film.
That's right.
We may have lost our venues temporarily, but we still have the love of this. We still have the love of cinema. We still have the love of film. So that's why we do this, man.
That's
What
right.
amuses me is the last movie I saw in theaters was Sonic the Hedgehog. I kind of don't want to lose being able to say Hey, I love that movie. I just think it's funny. I was so set to see Black Widow, and it was like, I know Candyman, and it was like, nah, bro, you don't get to see that movie. Yeah, I don't get to see that.
Yeah, well, I think Candyman would have been probably the pick there. I think Black Widow would have seemed like Atomic Blonde or any of the other ones.
Oh no,
I've been
Candyman for sure.
So for that end, and to exactly Kazak's point, let's get into our main topic of the day, all right? And that is, we're going to now look at those performances that were so stand out in horror films. And it may not have just been the fact that there was a scary scene, but just the performance, the lead up, the way the actors either portrayed or didn't portray something that should have happened on the screen or didn't happen, or you got teased that it was going to happen and they made you feel like it was going to happen. We're going to look at that. And so we'll start with the Film Samurai.
All right.
Some of the best performances, sir, that you've seen in a horror film.
Let's do it. All right, 3, 2, 1. First one I picked was Nicole Kidman in the 2001 film The Others, directed by Alejandro Amenabar. He's a Spanish director. Very moody piece, and it's only like 5 actors in the movie, 6 if you count the husband who comes back. But it's Nicole Kidman with her 2 children, another 2 children, a daughter and a son. Okay. In a big, huge, scary house, and the kids are seeing ghosts and so forth. And there's a big reveal at the end. I won't go into it. But
Thank you.
I think this is really one of my favorite Nicole Kidman performances in any movie, whether it's Far and Away or any film she's ever done. I
Mainly
think this
because
is probably one of her strongest films because the performance was there. The character she played, she was a mother who was really concerned for her children, and wanted the best for him. Her husband was away at war, and she's waiting for him to come back. Like a lot of horror films, and even I forgot to mention Haunting of Bly Manor, it has a lot to do with loss and sorrow and regret, and all those things that are just about universal feelings. And that's why they work so well in horror films. She's just outstanding in it, and I love her in that film. Number 2, I went with, oh, by the way, Nicole Kidman, she was nominated for a BAFTA award and a Golden Globe award. Didn't win, but she was nominated for those. So, yeah,
Wow.
horror movies sometimes do get nominations.
And she's so captivating in the film.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah.
I mean, you're following her story. And you're in that whole story. She really draws you in.
I don't think it's a hot take to say that's one of her better performances. Like that movie is still brought up, and it's like coming up on 10 years old, and it's still like a classic.
Absolutely. I watch it about once a year, so it's
good.
just that good. I love it. Number 2, I went with the 1976 film Carrie, Piper Laurie. Who
The
plays
mom.
The mom, yeah. Oh, my God.
Another mom you've picked out in here. Okay.
Yes. Brian De Palma film. This is an adaptation, of course, of the Stephen King novel, Carrie, about a girl who is going through puberty or her first period and so forth. She's bullied, and her mother is this really over-the-top, everything's a sin, you
Religious
can't look at.
fanatic.
She makes homemade clothes for her daughter and so forth. But man, this is more her role is more frightening than a lot of villains that you see in the horror films, like the one you picked, Misery. But yeah, she's outstanding in it, and she did get an Oscar nomination for this film. She didn't win, but she got a well-deserved nomination. And I don't think if you ever seen this film, you won't forget that.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
part and what happens to her at the end.
And you got to take into account De Palma's direction of her.
Yes.
Just the way they frame her
God.
in screen is just terrifying. And
It is terrifying.
When she is on screen, it is just amazing to watch because it's terrifying.
You fear for Carrie, you feel so bad for her because of the way her mom is. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
The third one I picked was a 1981 film called Possession, directed by Andrzej Zulawski. Isabel Adjani. I think Isabel Adjani started out as a fashion model, became an actress. This movie also co-stars Sam Neill, very young Sam Neill. He looks like really young in this movie. But it's one of those films it's basically a descent into madness, for this woman. She's going through a divorce with her husband, and he can't understand what's going on. And this is another movie where if you've ever seen it, you will not forget this one particular scene. I believe it's all one take. Do you know if it's one take, Zach?
I don't.
From my understanding, that was all one take, but that was this is years ago, so maybe.
And I gotta imagine they only shot it one time, because I feel bad if she had to reshoot this over and over again, because it's basically her, like she's possessed and she's just going crazy in this, looks like a subway tunnel or hallway or whatever, and she's just going mad basically. And it's a very raw performance, and it's very admirable to see her do this, and what she had to have probably gone through mentally just to perform it. So she was nominated at the Cannes Film Festival that year as best actress, and she won. So yeah, she actually won horror movie performance. So yeah, impressive. Isabella Adjani, Possession. If you ever haven't seen it,
I haven't seen
highly
it.
recommend it.
But I'm going to have to check this out.
They literally teach it when I was back in college for my film courses. I remember that we had to study that film. That was one of the films I had never even heard of it.
Yeah.
But I recognized that I love Sam Neill, so I was oh hey. But you're spot on. That thing I remember my teacher that stuck with me also, because it's just such a powerful scene. Basically, said she ad-libbed it in like 1 or 2 takes. It was done because he wanted his kinetic as usual. It's good. Like I said, it's literally taught in like film course because of her performance.
Yeah.
Sure. No, I believe in
Very
that.
good movie. Yeah.
So how about you, Mike? 3 powerful performances you saw in a horror movie.
Now, for me, another one taught or shown in film course is Anthony Perkins' Psycho.
Yes.
This is like
classic.
the classic, to the point where I hottest take. Put on your oven mitt gloves. Vince Vaughn in the remake was only watchable because he was copying a top tier performance. So I guess if you just mimic a top tier performance, you're gonna be serviceable.
Yeah.
That should be a testament to it. It's I argue it's 50% Hitchcock, 50% Perkins is that film.
I'm having a little trouble picking you up. Turn your mic towards them, just so that you're picking up when they're turning your head to them.
There you go. How's that?
Yeah, better. Thank
Perfect. So it's 50% Hitchcock, 50% Perkins. They basically carry this movie, and a lot of it is just something's off about him. Like I've seen it like multiple times, and it's like he's so subtle about it. Little twitches, little like clues, and then when you know what's happening, you go in rewatching it again. I mean, that's insane. You look at contemporaries like that. There are not many. At least in my ignorance, I'm not aware of many character studies on that level. They're just so character performance. And Psycho itself is just a classic. It just holds up. So that was a pretty common one. I was surprised no one else picked it, but I thought somebody else was gonna pick it. My other one is a personal favorite, Toni Collette in Hereditary.
Oh my gosh.
Man alive, talk about performances.
Yes.
I would argue that was on par with like Possession, in the sense of you're watching a woman's slow descent into madness, or is it? It is powerful, and especially you are feeling for this woman, her family. And I think what it does that a lot of films, horror or psychological films, don't do is make you relate to the characters, where you really do either you hate these people or you feel like you're watching it like from just an out of body, like you're just. But I was like really like I was rooting for her. I was rooting for her whole family, and that's just such a powerful thing you don't get in many horror movies outside of the fact you're rooting for the protagonist. No, I'm rooting for this woman just to have a good life, and she's just slowly falling apart. Colette is just one of those actresses. It's like once in a lifetime. Like she's just a national treasure. So she's always good in almost everything she's in. She was in a movie recently. I saw, but I can't remember for the life of me what
that was. The one I feel like I'm leaving you or something.
Yes, thank you. She was the mother.
Yes.
I'm thinking of Ending Things. It's a Netflix original.
And
It's good. It's
she was
very
great
good.
in Signs. Not Signs. What was the movie? The M. Night Shyamalan movie. The first one he did.
Sixth Sense. I forgot
Sixth
she
Sense?
was his mother.
Yeah.
Or she was the.
Yeah, she was the little boy's
the
mother.
little boy's mother. Yeah, again, she's just been around. I'd say forever, but like
She's a British actress too. It's like
I
you
didn't know
couldn't tell she was British.
Really, I didn't know that.
No.
I didn't know that. But yeah, so far of all the movies I've seen her in, probably Hereditary is my favorite because it's a character piece.
Yeah.
And my number one, as everyone knows who's listened to the show, my number one horror movie franchise is Aliens. So to the shock of no one, the Xenomorph from Aliens. No, the Alien Queen, Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
This is a franchise that I would argue is built on two things. This very unique creature design. There's really nothing like it. And Sigourney Weaver. This is a character you root for. She is the not the essential final girl, but she's the one that I don't think it's a hot take to say she's arguably one of the greatest female characters in fiction. When you see this character, I mean, really think about it. Because I know people always you guys see them think in their head. There aren't many I would put on that bar. This is a character that you see grow from basically just a normal person to this hero through sheer circumstance. And I picked specifically Aliens, and I would heavily recommend the director's cut because there's a beautiful moment. I guess 30-plus-year-old movie here. Beautiful moment where they tell her, "Oh, you've been in cryosleep, and your daughter you've been trying to get to for an entire movie passed away of old age. You missed that. She's gone. You can never have that back." And there's just a 2-minute. She just cries. And it's so human. And you don't get that, even by today's standards. You would think that people would have studied and learned from horror movies. But you don't get human moments like that. Aliens is filled. This is why I love that movie. And people say, oh, it's an action movie. It's like, yeah, it's action horror. It's so filled with great performances of characters you're rooting for who have hopes and dreams and are making basically common sense decisions in extreme situations. And Sigourney Weaver, man, when you realize that she's basically still fighting to get a daughter she can never get back, that puts her in an epsilon of not only great female characters, probably one of the greatest like film characters of all time.
Very iconic. Yep. for
Very
sure.
iconic. And like I said, I challenge y'all at home, really think about like a stronger female character than Sigourney Weaver's Ellen Ripley. It's just a powerful role. So,
Yeah. No, that's solid.
so those would be my three.
How about you, K-Zag?
All right. So I kind of cheated on this first one.
Of course you did.
Because I break
course
the
you
rules.
did.
Cheater. I break the rules.
I know we're going to talk about nurses, PJ, but I want to talk about turtles for the next 25 minutes. But go ahead.
So my first choice was you don't have one without the other, and you can't have the great performance that Jack Nicholson gave in The Shining without Shelley Duvall. The two of them, complete opposite sides of the spectrum, because on the one hand, you've got the fury and the anger of Jack Nicholson, his rage and for the possession of the Overlook Hotel, coming in and just fueling that whole physical performance. And then you have the complete breakdown of Shelley Duvall, watching it on screen and knowing what she went through to film those performances, take after take of that brutality. It's just jaw-dropping to watch that film. And when you watch it again and again, the performance hits you over and over. Just how much of a terrifying presence Jack Nicholson is, how much of a hog performance Shelley Duvall is, and the way that Kubrick films them all, because he was, I would, for lack of a better word, troublesome to work with. But getting those performances out of those actors and framing the way he did really just makes an amazing performance that you can watch over and over again, because it's such a well done movie. And the two of them on screen balancing each other out and throwing that scale all the way. And you get so involved in Shelley Duvall and wanting her to get out of there, and you watch Nicholson's chase of the family. It's just brutal, but it's so good. It's so good.
I'm right there with you.
The second one that I chose, first of all, if you don't watch films with subtitles, you're missing out. If you don't watch foreign films, you're missing out. And the one that I chose, it was Choi Min-sik or Mik-sun Choi from I Saw the Devil and Old Boy. And again, this one and his performances are two opposite sides of the spectrum, because in Old Boy you've got an ultimately sympathetic character who does a really, really horrible thing, and then you go watch him in I Saw the Devil. And you can call it lazy writing if you want, because there's no impetus for why he does what he does. But you don't care about his backstory. You don't care about what he does. You just care about the next thing he's going to do.
Yeah.
Just watching his performance, just almost deadpan of these horrible things that he does. It's terrifying.
Yes.
I don't know. I haven't watched I Saw the Devil in probably 5 or 6 years, and I swear to God, I don't know if I can watch it again. But it's just so good. And I mean, again, you consider, the ultimate sympathy that you drew from an Old Boy. And can we talk about that, 7-minute full one-shot fight sequence? No.
Always.
With the exception of maybe Jackie Chan, there are very few actors who could pull off that amount of physicality that long on screen. But then you go to I Saw the Devil, and you just watch this brutality of this, just this guy he's nothing special. I mean, he doesn't have the physicality, he doesn't have the size. He's just this deadpan, brutal.
That car scene,
that taxi scene, Jesus. but again, like I said, it's just so terrifying to watch this performance, because Mik-sun Choi is just so good. American audiences would know him from Lucy, Luc Besson's.
Luc Besson's vehicle. Yeah.
But yeah, again, it's just so frightening, this film, and his performance in it is just jaw-droppingly scary.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, everything he does is deadpan. I mean, you watch him play with victims. You watch him, running and surviving. I mean, it's just
it is a stunning performance. Just to get caught up in, not necessarily having any backstory. It's just go, go, go.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, you can call it lazy writing if you want, but under no circumstances is anything done without thought. And it's
if you don't watch South Korean horror, you're missing out on a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
a lot.
The Chaser is another great one.
Wow.
My third one that I chose was Jeff Goldblum in The Fly.
Whoa, another classic.
Yes.
Yeah. Jeff just does a stunning performance in this movie. Again, like I said, because he's dealing not only with, the psychology of a genius, descending into madness, but also having to deal with the body horror of David Cronenberg. Mm-hmm. And again, so much humanity gets conveyed, and you watch, and a whole bunch of the stuff that he does. He's doing gymnastics. He's doing a body transformation right on screen. In the hour and a half that you see this film, he goes through everything from Navige Professor to Superman to destroy a desiccating fly. It's just a stunning performance that shines through the makeup, that shines through the camera, and his chemistry with Gina Davis on screen. It's genuine and it's lovely, and it's just a beautifully wonderful descent into decay.
Tragic love story.
It's a tragic love story. It's a horror film. It's a body horror film, and this is one of the last great films of practical effects.
Yeah.
And Jeff Goldblum, without question, pulls every moment of it off from beginning to end. His performance is what drives that whole film.
Yeah. Considering he's layered in makeup.
I preferred Eric Stoltz in The Fly too, actually.
Yeah.
Eric Stoltz.
Get out! You're fired!
I was like, who's gonna make
I
the
quit.
Fly 2 is the better movie, Joe? Come on, stand up.
Is there a Fly 3?
Too good. You got to give other movies a chance.
No, it's called Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies. The hit sequel.
I made a cameo on
That's a
Pence's
pretty-
head recently, right?
I was gonna say, I guess you saw an SNL skit with Jim Carrey. They compare the Fly, and he's on Mike Pence's head, like dancing with Jim Carrey. I was like, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, and performances actually change it for you. So if you're a film fan, you know that most of the films that you watch, if the performance doesn't match even a great storyline or a plot, it can draw the film down. And so in my three, I started with, and I'll go 3, 2, 1, just like you, which I actually found the film where the actress or the performer here actually did win the Oscar. And I'm talking about Kathy Bates in Rob Reiner's film Misery, taken from the book by Stephen King.
Yes.
So when you watch this film, if you didn't know who Kathy Bates was before, a lot of people didn't, after this you do know. And so when you see this descent of someone who essentially is a nurse, but she's done some really horrible things, and then this person who writes novels ends up getting injured and she ends up letting him stay at her house, and then you find out that she's been stalking this person for a while and loves this person, likes this person, and then you watch her go back and forth between this absurdity of fan obsession worship of him to, no, you're going to write the book the way I think you should write. You shouldn't get rid of this character. You shouldn't. And now she wants to try to control him at the same time. And so seeing this juxtaposition of her playing the doting fan and at the same time the serial killer that she actually is, right, that he happens upon, playing that backwards and forwards at the same time.
And doesn't she use like nonsense words instead of
She
her
does.
singer, right?
Yeah, so
She's that,
so in
like,
the
weird-
book, in the book, she would slip only occasionally to say a profanity, but in the movie they didn't do it at all. So we all remember things like cock-a-doodie car and things like that she would say, just to show. And so you couldn't pull that off without that coming corny unless you have the chops of a Kathy
Yes.
Bates.
And she makes it scary because you realize she's holding back. And you're right. Like, I read the book. God, I was in high school, but that's something like you in the book when it does happen, you realize it's actually scary. It's like, oh God, like it's gotten bad if she just let that slip.
Yes.
That's a great choice. That's almost too easy of a choice.
Yeah.
that's a great
Yeah.
one.
And Rob Reiner's camera just absolutely loves her in that film.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Because you're caught up in her performance, man.
You are.
So good.
And you notice how they had set up to where she wouldn't allow herself to be seen by him, but except for one time when she was disheveled. Most of the time she was trying to get prepped up and cute for him, right? And then there's this one time, and I think Rob Reiner just pulls the camera up close to her face, and it's the only time we see her, and her hair is disheveled, and it's in her face, and she just kind of looks over, and you can see that she's feeling sorry for him, but not enough to let him go.
Yep.
And to see that tension in the face of the actress, or if it was an actor, is amazing because you just can't pull that off. When the camera pulls up close, by the way, for film fans, when they pull up close on your face has to sell it.
Yep.
Because that's why they're pulling in close. Otherwise, they'd pull back and maybe let your body language show it, or maybe something in the scenery show it. But whenever they go in like this, that's a director saying, I'm confident that you can sell this scene with just your face. 3, 2, 1, go. And Kathy here just is able to get there, get tortured, but I don't give a damn about you, but I love you at the same time. I have these crocodile tears, but you've done something evil. You've gotten rid of a character in a book that I want to see still happen. And to have her do that with just her face close up.
And not to mention, she overwhelms James Caan.
Oh, yes.
How do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
That's why she won an Oscar. I like the fact she won the Oscar just because of that fact alone. Because these are two phenomenal. Again, it's a movie carried by two people.
Yeah.
Incredible film.
Two
and
people.
Don't get me started on that sledgehammer scene to this day.
No.
No one forgets
Talk
that
about
scene.
it.
No one forget. You don't forget that scene.
No.
Oh boy.
No, you do not forget that scene. And so the only thing, so as I started with that, I thought, well, man, how do I top that if I start that at number 3? And the only way I could do that, and Film Samurai knows, and I think you know as well, is I have to talk about one Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson. Now, here's what's great about this, film fans. Usually it's one person that carries it that you go, wow. Here, playing real live people, because the Lorraine and Ed, were real people. And so here they are playing a husband and wife team, which you don't see usually in a horror film where they're both there and they're both kind of to be the protagonists.
Missing father or
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
And so what's interesting about this is Vera Farmiga also has won several awards already, but she didn't win an Oscar, but she was nominated in some other films. But she was doing a show at the time for AMC called The Bates Motel, which is based off of
Yes.
Psycho.
Yes, I love it.
And she won several BAFTAs for that. And so here's a person that, if you're Patrick Wilson, you go, man, how do I compete with somebody like that? Because she's also a director and a producer as well. So Vera Farmiga's got much talent, right? But something happens when the two of those are on the screen. You believe they're married. You really believe it. And then when she's having her permutations, because she's the spiritually gifted one out of the two, the way he handles that without her being like too weird, but he can normalize it. You just don't see that kind of level of acting in a horror film. And then for her, she said in an interview, I love this. She said in an interview that they screamed. She had to scream so hard in so many different takes, especially when that nun showed up, that she hurt a lymph node in her neck. And so it hurt her for a couple of days, even during the filming. Yet if you go back, you can't tell that she's actually doing that where she's injured her vocal cords, because they had her scream in almost operatic fashion. Go back and watch The Conjuring 2. Notice it's not the same pitch on the same scream. It's almost like an opera, the different levels of, and it's her saying, if I'm frightened by something like a bunch of ghosts and demons that I can't understand, that's not going to be, ah! That's going to, ah! And it's going to rise, and it's going to sound like an instrument in a symphony. That's the level of acting that you get here, and she talks about it.
She started out on the stage.
She did.
She did stage acting.
She started off on stage.
That's probably
Absolutely.
where she got a lot of that from.
Yeah, and so this is what you're getting, and this is just in a horror film. Who puts that much effort into a horror film, even to work on the scream itself,
Yep.
to make sure it hits?
I was gonna say talented people. That's like James Wan, like director on that movie. Again, those movies it's a dumpster fire universe, but the core line movies, the Conjuring films, they're masterclass. There's a reason why they built off of them, and I would argue it's because of three people.
Yeah.
Those two actors and James Wan.
Yeah.
Like that is, they have made an entire franchise on pure talent.
Yes.
Full agree. No doubt. That's a great pick.
And you want to talk about the commitment? She also met Lorraine Warren.
Yep.
She
Yeah.
did.
Interviews with him.
They texted back and
passed
forth
it.
as well, and then she passed away at 92. And she said one of the things that she wanted to get done is she wanted to make sure that she portrayed in a horror movie
Accurately.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ask Eddie and Medina about the episode of Figments that we did about the Warrens. We
Yeah.
had Michael Cross on, and yeah.
Yeah, I will definitely ask them about that. That's great. And so number one, now you figure this is already a great one. So how do you do this? And the only way I could do this is I have to talk about another movie that also I thought was done pretty well, a horror film, and this would be Sinister. And I'm talking about Ethan Hawke. Okay. So here's why this is so great for me, at least, and the way I see this is that I thought about that movie with Nicolas Cage. Was it 8mm, where he has to do this scene where he has to actually watch a snuff movie to try to figure out the clues to find this guy. That's the first thing I thought of when I saw Ethan Hawke sit down and he finds those old films that were up in the attic, because there's a lot of noise going on up in the attic, and so he brings these films down, and so he's a guy who's a writer, a very introverted writer who writes crime stories, but he's in a bit of a funk. And he needs some juice to get going. And what he does is he decides to take his family and move into a house where an actual horror scene had happened, where a murder had taken place. So this is kind of weird. And his wife doesn't understand why he wants to live in this house so bad, but it's because he's thinking he needs to get the juice to help, flow. And so what you get is almost like that scene in 8mm, is you get to see him. And this is something about camera work I love here too, is he has to sit down, and again, like Bates, he has to sell with his face that what he's watching on screen is so horrible. And all they had to do was just show the screen itself and make it full screen. Mm-hmm. But that's not what the director decides to do here.
Use it to your imagination.
Yes. And
That's
so
the cheese of- yep, he cuts.
Ethan Hawke, you see him, he's got the sweater on, he's got the glasses, he's looking very scholarly, and he's first looking at the film like it's like I'm analyzing, I'm looking at the different news clippings about the killer and stuff. And then you see him just get lost for a second, and you see him going, what's that in the corner of the screen? And you see him start to back up, and he starts to get nervous, and then you see him sink in the chair, and this is just him selling, and we're going, what's he looking at? What's he looking at? What's he looking at? And then the director, I love it, pulls the camera over so you can see a bit of it, then pulls it back. And you see him get so unnerved, he has to get up and get out of that chair. And this is just watching something sitting in a chair. And they made that scary, because now you're going, Bagul, the antagonist, can come through a screen and get you, right? So now you're going, is he going to come out the screen and get him? But you're so worried about Ethan Hawke and his safety, and then you know that his family's in the other room, and his kids, and Bagul likes kids, right? You're going, and you put them in this danger? So, all right, smart, professionally scholarly guy, writes books. What do? And you see him just going, I can't make words of what I'm seeing.
And to describe without
It's like
without spoiling
melting
it.
his mind right in front of him.
Yeah,
Yes.
without spoiling it, there's a moment of him watching one of the tapes. I'll just say the lawnmower sequence.
Yes. Oh, boy.
To me, I distinctly jump scared, and I was like, again, I see horrifying things in movies all the time. I watch horror. I've forgotten more horror movies than people have seen in their lives, and that stuck with me so long because, to your point, they don't cut to these horrifying things. They cut to his reaction.
Yes.
And this is a pretty stoic guy because of his acting. You realize this guy isn't like they established early on. This dude's seen horrifying things. So when you establish this character trait of a character who's seen everything is also now scared. Oh, that's genius. That's and then you have a great performance by Ethan Hawke. You have an outstanding creature. I'm all about the creature design, man.
Yep.
The Bagul.
Yep.
That thing is haunting. And
Yes.
it's always in the corner of the screen, which, if I remember, a director wanted to emulate seeing things in the corner of your eye. That's why, to your point, he's never a focal point of any shot, because you wanted to be like, it's in the corner. Oh, man,
Just
that's
out of the
such a
frame.
great movie.
And it's got a CSI element to it.
Yep.
Right? Because you're watching him uncover clues as to a murder that really happened that he knows about and the police know about, but his wife and kids don't. Because if they knew that, they'd go, why would you move us into a house like this?
Yes.
All this stuff. So you're getting this guy, so you're getting the CSI moments in that each piece of footage he knows is going to tell me something. So he's watching. And then I think one of the things I love here, Kazak, is awesome, is the idea of the camera sitting right here. Instead of scooting forward, he scoots forward. And you're going, no, because you're afraid Bagul at any moment's going to jump out of the screen and get him. And you're going, no, don't get closer. And you're watching Ethan go, and he's getting closer to the screen, and he's got this look on his face, and you're going, no, right? And then they don't.
When you're talking to the screen in a horror movie, it's an
Yes.
effective horror
Yes.
movie.
Effective.
where
And
you're
that goes back to performance.
because you care about the character. They built the character where you have empathy or feeling for him, and you don't want him to be in danger. So you're like, shit, no.
Don't do that.
And that's another, to your point, like it's mostly a lot of that movie is close-ups on him. And like I said, the jump scares you don't see technically. They're his reaction to it.
Yes.
Oh, it's great. It leaves it's horror movie 101. You know, the scariest thing is what you don't see.
Yes.
And man, that's a great choice. That's
What
a
you
great
don't
movie.
see and the sounds that come before it that make you start to imagine.
Yeah, which is kind of the tragedy with the sequel, which is an okay movie, but it's like, wow, you lost the key element that made the first one so powerful. You just, without Ethan Hawke, you just have it's an okay monster movie.
Yeah.
It's not even terrible. It's just, it's fine. It's nice to finish the story, but I kind of wanted Ethan Hawke back.
Yeah.
So that was a great choice. That's a great movie.
Yeah. So, film fans, what about you? What are
Well,
the movies?
we've actually got a couple minutes left. Can we do kind of an impromptu topic?
Sure.
Because we've got about 10 minutes left. We
Okay.
time.
Shoot.
So,
All right.
terrifying performances in a non-horror film.
Okay.
Terrifying
And
performance.
I'll give you my example. Gary Oldman in The Professional.
yeah.
Just watching him as the dirty cop hunting down, this little girl,
Stansfield,
hunting
yeah.
down the family, watching him take out this whole family. Again, Gary Oldman he himself is frightening, but him in that particular movie is just scary to watch.
I got an easy one. I had to think about it for a moment. I couldn't remember his name for a second. I'm stealing it from you guys. Javier Bardem, No Country for Old Men.
Yep.
Yeah.
Masterclass. And
Yeah.
again, the coin, the what was
Yep.
that thing? It's what they used to kill cows. That
it's like
stupid
a-
air pressure
an
gun
air
he
Yeah.
had.
The air gun.
The air is it air gun? Okay, I thought it had a
It
special.
had
name.
like a
Yeah.
spike in it that shoots it out and it pops back in.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess they couldn't find any evidence. Oh
Yeah.
man, he's haunting in that movie.
Yeah, he's who was thinking of Troy Sin, because again, it's the same kind of performance, and the fact that, like I said, it's deadpan, but again, at least Javier Bardem has motivation, money, but Troy Sin had none. So, like I said, that was kind of
Javier
like
Bardem
that.
has such an insane range.
Yeah.
Who's the lady in the Manchurian Candidate? The mom?
Angela Lansbury.
Angela
Ooh,
Lansbury.
good choice.
Oh,
That's
she's
an outstanding one.
yes.
And Meryl Streep in the new one.
Yeah.
Oh, she was the mom in that. That's right.
Yeah, I'll go with a kitty one that scared the crap out of me, which a horror scene, not in a movie that's not a horror. And I would say the first time we saw the sand person jump up in front of Luke Skywalker when he was doing this with the binoculars, because I was so laid back, I was like, okay, science, all right, what else? What's else? And then when he's doing this, the last thing I expected was, and that scared the crap out of me as a 9-year-old.
Don't worry, they'll be back. And with greater numbers too. Greater numbers too.
Yeah.
God, that is a good one, and like I said, that's like an effective scare. And you know what's funny? When you did that thing, I like you inadvertently did the reverse image like he did. That's such an iconic shot, and it is so obvious that he reversed it. That's so you even subconsciously did that. That's a great one. Like I said, there aren't a lot of movies. It feels weird that a lot of horror movies are so looked down upon, but it's a genre that it's very few people don't enjoy seeing. Like, we like getting scared. We like that adrenaline rush. And it's really weird that, like, just in the same with superhero movies, like, when they're done well, they're done incredible. Superhero horror, so it's always weird that the horror is kind of tossed back. And they try to avoid that genre at all. So, like I say, like, very haunting, very suspense-driven things. At the end of the day, if you really want to break it down, it's suspense and vice versa. But that's very interesting. You don't see those genres really expanded on. They're usually, I guess maybe it's due to their cheapness, but
Right.
That's a bit of a tragedy because, let's say, you don't really see it treated with the care of the first Conjuring movie. You usually see it treated with the care of the trash Annabelle movies. I apologize. I mean, one of those movies, they're not very good.
They're trash.
And
They're
it's
trash.
They
sadly,
were done
okay.
to make money.
That's it.
Yeah.
Cash grab. Cash
and
grab.
it's tragic. It's the same universe.
Dollar bill, y'all.
Exactly, right? So yeah, it's a real shame. But man, there's just so many great ones as we've like this month we've gone over. Like you could spend, like I said,
I went with
hundreds of them.
my 3 picks were like older movies.
Yeah.
Which I consider some of them, like Carrie's a classic to me. But even more modern horror films, The Babadook, what a performance in that film.
I almost
Ezzie Davis was incredible in that film.
Well, I almost picked the lady from Babadook. It's the same, but my 2 was Toni Collette or her. I forgot her name. I had it written down.
Oh, by the way, Toni Collette is Australian, not British.
Okay.
That's even more absurd because they always usually have such a strong accent. That's it. Yeah, Toni Collette and her. Those are 2 almost identical performances of a woman slowly falling into madness. And they both are just incredible. And I think the tragedy is, I think Toni Collette got nominated for several awards for Hereditary.
Yeah.
But Babadook was the horror movie darling. Everyone praised it, but like I didn't see it get too many awards past the horror movie cycles, and that's an incredible movie.
I also think Tilda Swinton got overlooked, and we need to talk about Kevin because she's the opposite. Someone forced to go there who actually has to hold the thing together.
I forgot about that movie.
Which one?
We need to talk about Kevin with Tilda Swinton.
Okay.
It's most famous for being the big breakout role for Kevin. What's the actor?
I actually can't recall.
I forget his name. He's a big deal now. I'll look it up. But that's another good movie it's about a kid who has a bunch of. I'm shocked you haven't seen it. He has a bunch of like key psychological triggers for like serial killing, like
Ezra Miller.
Ezra Miller.
Thank you. It was the breakout for Ezra Miller, who now can choke out anyone he wants. But Ezra Miller, it was his big breakout role, and he does a great job in it too. But you get this mother who knows something's wrong for son. Vega, you need to watch that one. We need to talk about Kevin. That's right up your alley because it's all about.
And after you watch it, we need to talk about it.
Yeah, right. And then we need to
That's right.
We need to talk about Kevin.
Because that's all we do here, right?
That's genuinely surprising you haven't seen it. That's definitely
next
you.
episode, we need to talk about Kevin.
So here's something that's going to be good. We're talking about topics. So for next week, or I'm sorry, 2 weeks from now, we're going to be a lot closer to Halloween, and so we're going to do you a favor. We're going to talk about, because we've talked about the greatest performance, we've talked about all the great stuff about it, but we'll tell you which horror films you can give a miss, right? They'll let you down, because there's nothing worse than when you want a good, scary, psychological thriller and you watch something that didn't even touch your nerves once, that didn't even challenge you in any way.
Fails.
And fails. So
Fails.
we
Very
will
hard
definitely
trope.
tell you which films we think you can probably give a miss to as you're trying to get ready to watch a bunch of Halloween films to get everybody in the mood for Halloween as it's starting to come up. So we definitely will do that. So we got your back on that one, movie fans. And also, what were your thoughts? I still want to know, what were your thoughts? Please put that in the comments below if you're watching this on Facebook Live or if you see it on the YouTube channel for Vegabomber. We want to just see, what did you think and what performances might we have just overlooked that you think are great? Because that's all in it for us. We think that's interesting to get the different thought processes. How are we doing, Kazak?
Let's get our shout outs in and get out of here, man.
That's it. So we're going to get to the shout outs. We'll go to the Film Samurai first.
All right. My shout out to my son Matt, my daughter Nicole, my cousins out in California, Joelle and Stella, and my Twitter pals, all the people I interact with on Twitter who give me great feedback and recommendations of stuff to watch.
Nice.
Enjoy their stuff.
Film Twitter, right?
Film Twitter, yep.
All right. For me, it's obviously easy ones. My mom, my dad, and all my coworkers and friends at Keith's Comics and More Fun Comics. And, of course, yep, hey, Susie.
Shout
I
out
know
to
he has to be
Jesus.
watching these.
Yes.
And, of course, everyone here, you guys. I'm shouting out to you guys.
All right.
We like that.
We'll take it.
This is the only time we like shouting, being shouted at. There we go.
All right, my shout outs to our compatriots who share Talk Nerdy to Me Sundays right here on DallasOnAir.com, and that is Cole Houston and Eddie Medina. Happy birthday, Cole, by the way. And, of course, look for the return of Figments right here on DallasOnAir.com. And, of course, tune in to all things cool right here on DallasOnAir.com, including 12-Pack, including Best of Business, including Say Something, and a whole lot of other shows. Like I said, keep us tuned here. We're your best source for talk right here in Dallas, man. DallasOnAir.com.
He ain't lied about that. I want to shout out to Brandy and Barry. Shout out to you. Sean Presley, Tristan Fraser, Lauren Wiedauer, Harry Thomas, who also reviews films, Troy Ross, Michael Paul, Mad Mel, We love Mad Melda. She's awesome. Stephanie Crane, Scott Laney, and Sandra, and of course Eddie Medina. And once again, happy birthday to you, Cole Houston. And with that, we're out of here. Kick that music.
Sayonara.
Wash your hands. Go vote.
That's right.